Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about the idea of having conversations about your relationship with your partner or ex-partner. So in today's video, I want to break down why your partner doesn't want to have conversations about the relationship, why it's so important to understand, and what you can actually do about it. So I understand why when you're trying to repair a relationship or trying to regrow a relationship, it can feel so frustrating when you're trying to have a conversation about the relationship that maybe your partner has said things about, complained about, or is having issues with. You're trying to raise that topic and your partner or your ex-partner does not want to have that conversation. I can understand how it can seem like a paradox where it's like, well, how are we going to get anything fixed if we can't talk about the relationship? But it's important to understand why this topic specifically may feel like it's off limits when you're trying to repair a relationship. So the first thing that I want to talk about, just in terms of understanding it, is the difference between effort and value. So effort is simply how much energy will something take. This is how we all live in our brains. How much energy is something going to take? What is the cost of entry? And what is the eventual outcome going to be? What will it benefit the values that I hold, the things that I'm finding important, the things that I want in my life? Will it benefit that if I perform this action? And this is something that we all do subconsciously. We all do it in our minds for pretty much everything that we do in life. Relationships, jobs, hobbies, big decisions, small decisions. We tend to try to avoid things that we've seen historical evidence that the effort is more than the value. So we don't want to waste our energy. We all have a finite amount of energy, right? And if we have experienced things that you put a lot of energy into and you don't see the value from, we start to avoid those things in many different ways. So for example, I'm not going to apply for that job because it will be 4 rounds of interviews only for them to hire the guy fresh out of college, as an example. The effort doesn't seem like I'm going to get any value from it. I'm not going to call them after work because their focus is elsewhere. I've done this enough times to be able to predict what I think is going to happen from this. I'm not going to go to the party because I feel drained socializing and I feel worse the next day. So we base this on the evidence that our brains collect. This is our own confirmation bias, and we all have it with every different experience in many different ways. And the same happens when it comes to conversations about the relationship specifically. When conversations start to break down, usually it's because the price of entry, the effort, like we mentioned, the effort of entering a conversation is not going to provide much value. And if your partner or yourself has seen that over time happen, that the effort does not equal the value that you get from it, i.e. nothing gets fixed, nothing moves along, nothing changes, no one feels good, etc., then you start to avoid having those conversations. Oftentimes that's what happens in relationships, is those conversations just get avoided. I'm going to avoid an argument. I'm going to avoid talking about this certain topic because I don't think my partner is going to respond. So if you're trying to fix a relationship and you're trying to repair it, you can want to start to enter these conversations. You can, especially if you've been reflecting on things and realizing there are better ways that you could have handled things, then you can get into this mindset of, oh, I've had these realizations. I want to talk about it. I think I know how to fix it. Oftentimes your partner is still coming from a place of, I have not seen any evidence that talking about this is going to feel very good. And sometimes even when you have started changing things, things have not changed within as much as you'd hoped. And these conversations can still take a lot of effort and not provide the value that is wanted from your partner, right? So your partner can feel like they don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about the difference between high and low value conversations. Now, in one of my videos, I know a couple of you asked about what is the difference, right? What specifically is the difference between high and low value conversations, especially when it comes to repairing a relationship? So the first thing I want to talk about is just the very low value conversations, the ones that are high effort and low value. So oftentimes these are ones that have no depth, could be had by anyone. So having this conversation could be had with a stranger in the street and they would provide the same sort of depth as yourself. Definitely low value conversations are, what you're doing. Hey, how are you? That is just day in, day out small talk. It doesn't actually provide any value. But I want you to start also thinking about the amount of effort that it takes to have these conversations. These may feel like they're low effort because they're opening a door, they're low pressure, but they actually require a lot of effort. If I turn around to you right now and was like, what are you doing? Then it's going to take some sort of cognitive effort from you to go, okay, is he asking because he wants something? Is he asking because he's interested? Is he asking because something important is going to happen? Is he just trying to open up a line of conversation with me? What is happening here? So it starts to create this effort. And especially with a partner or an ex-partner, these sort of messages or just, conversation openers take a lot of effort, because then it's a matter of trying to decipher what is happening here, right? It's not very clear. So it actually becomes a higher effort because of the historical context of the relationship. Other high effort conversations are when there's fight, flight, or fawn actions. So if you are having conversations and you're still getting defensive, you're still pushing back, you're not able to validate, you're arguing, you're raising your voice, these are fight actions that a lot of people fall into these traps, right? But there's the flight actions as well. This is also very high effort to be on the receiving end of, because if there's a conversation happening and there's the fear that you're actually going to storm out, you're going to walk away, you're going to avoid the actual difficult topics, then this to your partner is going to be very high effort. It takes a lot of energy to deal with that sort of conversation. Or there's the fawn action, which is if you are just going to sit there and agree and nod and not provide any sort of real value to the conversation at all. You're just there to be passive and just let the conversation happen, and that's it. It feels pointless, right? So this is very low value, high effort. It doesn't actually help anything, and it takes a lot of cognitive effort. But especially if you're trying to repair a relationship, oftentimes high effort, low value conversations are where there's a push for an end result. And this is oftentimes quite subconscious. You're entering a conversation with this sort of predetermined outcome in mind, something that you're like, ultimately, I'm having this conversation because I want to persuade my partner to re-enter the relationship. Then that pressure is felt. It's felt in the way that you speak, in the way that you follow the conversation. So it takes a lot of high effort because your partner or your ex-partner feels like they need to be on high alert because they don't want to be pushed into making a decision to enter the relationship again. So this is very high effort, low value conversations. Or if conversations are consistently heavy and difficult, it takes a lot of effort. Talking with a partner or ex-partner when you have your own sort of feelings there, if the conversation is always going to be heavy and difficult, then it takes a lot of effort, and it's also providing no value to both of you. So these are very high effort, low value conversations that I see over and over again when people talk about trying to repair a relationship or trying to get an ex back or repair the relationship with their partner. They're constantly falling into these conversations that are heavy, difficult, high effort, low value, and don't help anything. And then they wonder why the relationship isn't going anywhere. So what is the opposite end of the spectrum? What are the high value conversations with low effort? And obviously this is just a YouTube video, so I can't go fully in depth into this, but if you do want to start your journey into understanding the core elements of relationships, understanding how they work together, how to build them back in a way that is healthy, then join my Relationship Bootcamp, where you'll learn the same fundamentals that all of my members start with to start turning their relationships around. It's free, so all you have to do is click on the link in the description to grab your spot. High value, low effort conversations. So this is where you are cultivating connection, understanding, compassion. These provide value to your partner. Like, everyone wants to enter a conversation like that. If you think about therapists, when people have therapists, the conversations you have with a therapist are filled with this connection, understanding, compassion, someone who actually gets it. This is very high value. This is the higher level values that people look for when it comes to relationships. It's also very easy. There's a low effort. If I started a conversation with you and started digging in, asking you questions about your day and how stressful work is and things like that, even though it could potentially be a heavy conversation, if I'm there connecting with you, understanding, being compassionate, then it would be a lot easier for you to be able to open up about this and be like, wow, you actually get it. Like, it provides a lot of value, right? So high value, low effort. There needs to be zero fight, flight, or fawn actions. It's very simple. Doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but it is simple. The simple things of getting defensive, etc., as we mentioned, have a massive impact as to whether the conversation is going to continue in a positive way or not. It's very difficult to connect with someone, to actually have a conversation with someone if they're getting defensive, if they're deflecting, or they're getting argumentative, they're raising their voice, etc., or they're storming off from conversations. It's very difficult to have those conversations. So there needs to be not just less, there needs to be zero. This means that the conversation is low effort. Once you start to remove these from conversations, the conversations become a lot easier. The effort is minimized. Your partner doesn't have to constantly think about whether you're going to argue and they have to come up with some counter argument, or whether you're going to storm out and they're going to have to say something to make you feel better. The effort starts to become low and it becomes a lot easier, and the cost of entry of the conversation becomes a lot lower, because it means that they're able to enter that conversation knowing that these actions aren't going to be there and it's not going to take up a lot of brain power, right? No push for end results. So again, this is providing high value. If you're constantly pushing just with one agenda of we need to get back together, then you're missing the point of the relationship. You're basically saying, I want the outcome of a relationship, I want the end result of a relationship, but I'm not willing to take on the effort of the steps in order to make it happen. If you're only having conversations about the relationship, i.e., when are we getting back together? When are we going to call ourselves boyfriend, girlfriend? When are we going to get remarried? When are we going to call off the divorce? That puts a lot of pressure on your partner to make decisions. So when that is removed, when there is no expectation, and this is simply the high value conversations, then that actually counterintuitively rebuilds the relationship. It's a lot easier to have a conversation with someone if you don't feel like there's an end point agenda to all of these conversations. And there has to be evidence that topics don't have to be heavy to be meaningful. So a lot of people have mentioned that, well, my partner doesn't want to have a conversation about us or the past because it feels heavy. But the truth is that you can have conversations about heavy topics without the tone having to be heavy. For example, let's say you're having a conversation with your partner about the way that you acted in a relationship. Being able to validate from a place of, hey, I could understand how difficult it must have been to deal with me in those really important conversations, because I think the way that I spoke to you was really unfair. There's a difference between saying that and talking about the same thing from a place of heavy guilt and shame. So if you're coming in saying, oh my God, I just feel so bad. I'm so sorry about what I did to you and I regret it and I'm so sorry, and everything that I'll do, I'll change and I'll make sure that I do things better, and I'm going to start doing things differently, and you must absolutely hate me and I hate myself. That is making the conversation topic heavy. So they're both the same topic, but one is a lot more cognitive energy because your partner feels like they need to make you feel better. And now it becomes high effort rather than low effort, which is not having to soothe you, not having to make you feel better. The conversation topic has not gone on to you, it's still on them, and it's low effort, if that makes sense. So there needs to be evidence that topics don't have to be heavy to be meaningful, that you can have meaningful conversations that are important, but without it becoming heavy and a lot of cognitive energy. And the best way to think about the high value, low effort conversations is think about the conversations at the start of every relationship. When you start a relationship, you don't start a relationship by talking about the ins and outs of whether you're going to be together or not, because it doesn't make sense, right? There's no implied relationship there. You've never you've never shown any connection, understanding, compassion towards each other. You have no evidence that relationship is going to be strong. And now if the relationship is in a rough patch, there's a lot of evidence that the relationship has not worked so far, has not been beneficial so far. So having a conversation about making a decision is like trying to sell a car that doesn't have an engine. You're pushing for this end result of the customer buying the car when they've already seen that it doesn't have an engine. No matter how much you try and push it, they're going to want to not talk about it because they've already seen enough evidence to know that car doesn't have an engine. But if they experience the car running and they see that it runs and it runs well, it won't happen instantly, but they'll be able to see the evidence that the car works and is different than it was before. So think about the conversations at the start of the relationship, the times when you are getting to know your partner, when you are taking an interest, when you are connecting on the emotional side of things. These are very high value, low effort. It's easy to talk about ourselves when someone understands, when someone is compassionate, when someone has that connection. These are the conversations that have high value and low effort. So it is not the topic of conversation. It's the effort versus the outcome. So I want to dismantle this idea that the topic of the conversation is the thing that's being avoided, because your partner or your ex-partner will have and will speak about the relationship with other people. Maybe a therapist, maybe a friend, maybe a work colleague. They will have those conversations, but they will have those conversations with people who, again, provide high value, low effort. So if your partner is avoiding having these conversations with you, then I want you to ask yourself, take a look at what we've just spoken about and ask yourself, does it require a lot of effort to have these conversations with them? Pressure? Do I truly understand? Do they feel understood? Is value there to have these conversations? And the same applies if your partner currently isn't speaking with you. Being able to reflect on those conversations and asking yourself, what is it that I can improve in order to provide for future conversations that high value, low effort? What is the price of entry when it comes to a conversation with me about a topic? What are my blind spots? And again, this can be the thing that we don't even realize that we're doing. Like we said about the fight, flight, fawn sort of actions, things like that. I've actually done a deeper dive video on that a lot of people don't realize that they're doing until they reflect on it afterwards. But being able to undo those is going to be really important to be able to not just have conversations, but have high value, low effort conversations with your partner in the future. So I won't dive into it here. I'll leave you with that deep dive video and I will see you over there.